All right. Hey guys. I am with Stephanie Caine, Dr. Stephanie Caine today, wife
Hey,
of Pastor Jason Caine at Blue Oaks, and so many other things. She's a mom of 9-year-old twins.
that's correct. Yeah.
9-year-old twins. She's a professor of psychology and she's actually a counselor. She's a certified counselor. She does all kinds of things. So I'm going to let you kind of just what are you doing right now? What's your job in quarantine and before this whole mess happened? Kind of what is your job? Describe to us what you do.
Well, first of all, I just want to thank you, Jamie, for reaching out to me. It's an honor that you would want to use me in this way to kind of hopefully bring some encouragement to people out there who are dealing with
Yeah.
this time, all these unique challenges. So I just want to thank you for that.
Yeah.
So just to answer your questions about what I'm doing right now is, just like what's happening in the K to 12 setting, in the college world and in graduate school world, we've taken everything online. And so I'm still
Okay.
teaching, but I'm
Wow.
doing that remotely. And so, yeah, we're using meetings just like this to meet with classes and teach.
Awesome.
Yeah. So,
Awesome. So you've done all kinds of things. So you've done lots of counseling and teaching.
yes. Yeah.
You go all over the board. I personally wanted to bring you on because I know that when I have a conversation with you, even just in passing, unfortunately, we haven't been able to pass each other in a few
I
weeks.
know it.
But even just a quick text exchange with us, I feel all the better, right? So
Oh,
I
thank
feel so
you.
much more equipped to deal with my daily life and struggles when you just open your mouth. I really, truly feel
Wow.
blessed
Thank
by that. So
you.
I want everybody else to hear. Really, the point of this is to talk about kind of mental health in this
Mhm.
quarantine, right? This is definitely an uncharted time. It's something new to all of us.
Yeah.
Um, so I think that a lot of people are dealing with feelings they didn't really want to be dealing with or know how to deal with. And I feel like you're just the
Yeah.
perfect person to maybe give us some tips on practical um, ways to equip ourselves with this time. Does that sound
Yeah.
good?
Yeah. That sounds great. Thanks.
Awesome. Okay. Thanks again for hopping on with me. Appreciate you
Yeah.
taking the time out. I know you have a lot going on. First of all, what are some ways that we can cope with fear and anxiety right now, just in general, with everything that's being thrown at us daily?
Yeah, I just want to really start with waters right here. This is like a great equalizer in the sense that we are all having this global experience, but we're experiencing it differently, right? And being in our own spaces can feel isolating sometimes.
Yeah.
And what fear does is it can develop a belief system that may not be true, but because we're disconnected from people, we don't always have ways of checking those feelings to see if it's true.
Mm,
And I can give you an example talking to different moms who are homeschooling kids and the level of productivity they're experiencing. And, I've talked to a friend of mine and she's like, I feel like everybody's getting all this work done on time and I'm not. And she's just like, it just doesn't seem like, it seems like my kid is not learning anything, like I'm not getting it done. And I just kind of challenged her and was like, well, have you checked that with anybody? Are you sure that this is what everyone's experience is
hmm
with that? And, at that point, it kind of hit me that she doesn't have the community that she had. There is not that meeting different parents in the yard and talking about,
Yeah.
how's school going. And so you're able to develop these own stories in your head of what
Yeah.
body
Absolutely.
is really experiencing. So one of the practical tips that I would give to you is to, when you're in fear or anxiety, is really challenge those thoughts that are feeding your fear and anxiety.
Ooh, that's
Um,
good. I love
yeah,
that. It's easy to watch everybody's social media highlight reel right now.
right.
And I'm actually loving, I feel like a lot of people are trying to be more real now than they ever have been
Yes.
before. So I'm trying to remember that when I see someone's good post that, hey, good for them. I'm glad they had a good day, but maybe tomorrow will be a harder day. Like I know I go back and forth with those feelings.
Right.
So really keeping my own mind in check when I see something super positive. Hey, that's awesome. And then the next day remembering that, ooh, they were super happy yesterday and today they're kind of feeling the pull. So that's awesome. I love that one.
Yeah. And to that point, I think the second tip I would give is your social media access and how you use it and recognizing what's good for you and what's not good for you. Some people feel a connection to people when they use social media. It could be a healthy place just to check in and see what everybody's doing and post comments and pictures, and it's a connection point. But for some of us at different times, it could be a source of anxiety to see how other people are living, seeing snapshots of good points of their lives, and assuming that that must mean that yours is a wreck or you're not doing it right. So check yourself to see what works for you, because if it doesn't work for you to be connected on social media, if it's feeding your fear and causing you more anxiety, then don't do it. One way that I've reframed it is people who post positive moments or things that go well, is I look at it as tips, like, is there anything in this that I could take out of this? Like, wow, that's pretty cool. Maybe that's a great craft activity. Maybe that's something I can try. If it's not, I'm okay with looking at it and going and celebrating, like, hey, I'm glad these people had a great moment. That's for them. No way am I doing that. But hey,
keep scrolling.
I'm really glad that worked for you. And that was really great.
I love that.
You know? And then finding that balance of people who kind of post those, those real negative posts about like, hey, this was a struggle. We got nothing done today. And those are fun ways to connect too. So if you're not able to find that balance in messaging, then there is nothing wrong with using another avenue of connecting with your friends and family.
Yeah, I love that. Jeremy has called me out in the past, like if I'll mention a discussion or a kid moment that we had, and I'll tell the story about it on social media, and he'll call me out like, why are you complaining? You know, I'm like, ooh, no, I'm not complaining. That's so that all those other moms or wives or women or whatever in our same position can feel that they're not alone. It's never about a complaining or a look at me. It's like, hey y'all, this is what happened. Like, it's not all sunshine and rainbows sometimes, and kind of finding the silver lining in the fact that we're kind of in it together.
Yeah, I love the balanced approach you give. Like sometimes you're like, hey, this is the before table and this is the after everybody's gone to bed. And it's like, oh, it's so relatable to so many of us.
Hey, what do you think about like fear right now? People that struggle with anxiety, which is a very real thing with or without the coronavirus, right? Before any of this happened, I think so many people struggle with anxiety. It's very, very real. Having this situation, which is unknown to everyone and new, I feel like a lot of my good friends with anxiety, and I feel it creeping in on myself sometimes too, it's really overwhelming right now. So how would you suggest, like, how can we balance out? I mean, I think like you said, choosing what you feed yourself with is important, but even outside of that, how can we get through some of those anxious thoughts and feelings, you think?
Yeah, I think self-care is so important during this time. Anxiety, just as you said, even prior to this event taking place, it was a huge issue that was plaguing our society. In fact, it is seen in many researchers as an epidemic because there's such a high percentage of the population that is not struggling with anxiety, but undiagnosed anxiety. So you have people who there's a spectrum of it. You have people who are anxious, who worry a lot. And then you have people who have anxiety that truly affects their ability to function in life.
Yeah.
And so you've got a broad spectrum, and in our society, there's a high percentage of people who are undiagnosed and being untreated, and they really have a high level of anxiety. Regardless of where you are on the spectrum right now, it's so important to practice self-care and really tune into how your body is responding to stuff. So me, I'm probably on the mid end of the anxiety, not on the low end. I'm a pretty anxious person at times. And I had to check myself even this morning about how I am so used to a pace of rushing myself. And that's one thing I noticed about my anxiety. I don't know if other people with anxiety can relate to this, but I have this time clock over my head. And sometimes it's not even necessary. I'm just always rushing to let's get this done. Let's move to this. Let's move to that. Let's move to this next thing. And even though the world has had to stop, my pacing, the inner time clock I have myself has not changed yet. I have to be intentional.
I feel you on that. I feel like I struggle with that same thing.
I have to be intentional about reprogramming myself. And that's what I think people should use this time to do right now, is to be attuned to how their body is responding to their days. Like when you wake up, are you feeling rushed? Are you feeling like, you find your mind going through the things that needs to be done today? And you need to challenge yourself and ask, do these things really need to be done right now? Just this morning, I was upstairs with my daughter and she was in the bathroom. and I was going to brush her hair just to get downstairs and get breakfast going. And I noticed that she's like washing her hands, and the soap turns into bubbles, and it's really cool. And so like she's watching the bubbles, and then I'm standing there and I'm like, okay, in
Yeah.
my mind, I'm like, okay, and I had to stop myself, and I'm looking at her and I'm thinking, actually, it's not me that's the teacher at the moment prodding her. I need to be learning from her. Like, what is
Yeah.
the rush? If she is finding joy in making bubbles, that's a
Yeah.
beautiful thing. And maybe
Amen.
I need to stop for a second and find joy in the little things.
Yeah.
And I had to recognize that I was pacing and trying to push and add hurriedness in a day that we don't it's not necessary.
Yeah.
And so I actually had to leave. I just kind of walked away because I didn't want to intrude on
Yeah.
this joyful moment of hers. And I didn't know how to like bring myself down. So I say all that to say is, let's be aware of the ways that we try to pressure ourselves, the inner pressure that we put on ourselves. And
Yeah.
let's pause and start asking ourselves questions like, why am I worried about this right now? Is this really the issue
Yeah.
today? What happens if I don't do XYZ today?
I love that. I
I
love
think
that.
it's really questioning ourselves more and trying to do things that, and another thing is do things that are probably counterintuitive to us. So,
Mm,
um, I would not typically walk out the bathroom. I would typically be like, let's get it done. Let's move
mm-hmm.
on. Let's move on to the next thing. But it was counterintuitive for me to walk away.
And
It,
let the moment happen.
yeah, it's
Yeah.
counterintuitive for me to say, we don't have to wake up at 8 a.m. every morning to get to homeschool. We can wait till we're ready to wake up. That
Yeah.
has been a challenge to myself. So I think it's
Yeah.
us doing things that are out of the box.
Yeah. Yeah. That's actually a perfect segue. My next question was, what do you think we can take away from like this forced slowdown? So I'm similar to you. I have this like this internal hustle of always having a place to be and a thing to do. And once it's done, I have something else to do. I found myself the other night, we made dinner, ate dinner, put dinner, cleaned up the kitchen. And it was like this moment where I recognized that like there was nothing we needed to get to. And it was
Right,
so nice that but I
yeah,
don't often recognize that feeling. So
right.
my question to you is like, what do you think as families we should be doing with this forced slowdown? Like, I feel like it's almost like a forced Sabbath, right? Where
I agree.
more days than not, we have the time to just be. And what do you think we should be learning from that? What do you think we should be doing with that?
I think that, and this is a big part of who I am, just influenced by societies. We live in a time and a culture where a lot of our self-worth is tied into productivity and
Yes.
busyness.
Yeah.
And there's all these incredible blogs and articles that come out on how the most successful people start their days at 4 a.m., 5 a.m.,
Yeah.
and
Yep.
all the things they get done by noon and all the other things they get to. And we use that as sort of like a goal that we want to get to. Those are our role models. And we tie that in so much into whether we're worthy or not. And here we are in a
Yeah.
space where we can't do any of those things. And now we're
Mm-mm.
having to ask ourselves, like, what makes me worthy? Where is
Yeah.
my self-worth? Is it really in the fact that I was able to do all these things in one day? Or
Yep.
what if I'm just worthy because I just am?
I
What if
love
I'm
that.
just worthy because I am created by God and there's my value is just in being an image bearer
Yeah.
there? And that is where my worthiness. And what if my presence is enough, not what I can do? There's been ups and downs with my kids, with being disconnected from their sweet friends and their awesome school community and their
Yeah.
incredible teacher. And they've had ups and downs where they've had tears and, really upset. And I didn't have any words of wisdom to offer. All I had was my presence, was
Yeah.
just to be there and to hold them and to just kind of be there in that moment. And I think that that's where we can experience a paradigm shift that we can take with us beyond this point, is recognizing that what we do is not where our value is. That's not who we
I
are.
love that.
That's not where our worthiness is.
Yeah, that's great. That's such a like you said, it's so counterintuitive to what we've been programmed to believe and what our jobs and our to-do lists. create in our lives. And then all of a sudden it just came to a halt. And I
Yeah.
think some of my up and down on my emotions in the first week or so, because I feel it regulating a little bit, was
Mm-hmm.
that feeling of not being able to get my checklist done every day. I didn't get to get up and work out at 4:30 in the morning. And then by the time my kids woke up, I already had, 15 things done.
Right.
And to me, that was like a golden do, check,
Yeah.
ding.
Mm-hmm.
In my heart, in my mind, I felt like, okay, I'm good enough because I got all that done. Not to
Mm-hmm.
say that if you don't wake up early and do all those things, you're not. Just for my
Right.
internal, you know, list, I was checking off my things. So I love that you said that because it's so true and I'm feeling it for sure. And my kids are feeling it.
Yeah.
I feel like, I don't know about at your house, but um, we're learning to talk through conflict more because
Oh yeah.
normally in our busyness and our to-do lists, we would move on. Okay, that was
Yes.
frustrating, but I'm going to go to my friend's house, says
Mm-hmm.
one of my teenagers. Or, okay, that
Mm-hmm.
was frustrating, but I'm going to go to the gym, says me.
Mm-hmm.
That was frustrating, but I'm going to go work on something, elsewhere. Now we have to stop and go, wait a second, that hurt my feelings. And let
Yeah.
me explain why and how we can maybe work through this differently next time. And it's hard for us,
It
you
is
know,
hard,
we're
but
so used to texting and Snapchatting for my kids. That's how they
sure.
communicate. So to have
Yeah.
to sit with me and say, I'm feeling frustrated because I miss my friends and school
Yes.
feels hard at home. And for them to have to talk through that and me listen and
Yeah.
then and like you said, just be there sometimes is it's a shift and it's so hard.
Right. But it's a good shift that we
Great.
can take with us after, you
Yeah.
know. I think that this, to your point, just looking even into parenting and who we are as friends with each other is
Oh
being
yeah.
present in our communication and listening and recognizing that sometimes we don't have any wisdom to offer. It's
Hmm.
enough to just show empathy and say, you know what? Yeah, this sucks.
Yeah.
This is hard. And
Yeah.
sometimes it's just enough for people to hear that, wow, I'm not alone in this.
Yeah.
I think it's an opportunity there. And we're mirroring for our kids, and the people around us, like, how do you respond in a time of crisis? They're going to take this with them.
Yeah.
They're going to use it. Prayerfully, there's no other pandemics down the line,
Right.
but
Right.
there'll be other crises in different
Yeah.
situations. And they're going to look at, like, how did my parents handle this?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
were they a wreck? Were they constantly watching the news? Were they,
Right.
angry, or did they show gratefulness and appreciation for being
Yeah.
around us and ways to have fun even when they didn't have control?
Ooh, I
So
like
it's an
that. That's good.
opportunity.
That's good. Okay, you did it again. You perfectly segued into my last question for you. And that is, before I found out that this quarantine was being extended, I already felt a little bit of mourning that this family time was going to be over. And I know that sounds
Me
crazy because I want the
too.
virus to be gone.
Me
I don't want anybody else
too.
to get sick. But
Yeah.
I was in the shower and I was thinking, how am I going to take what we've learned and turn that into normal life? Because we can't, this isn't normal. Like this
Right.
lack of to-do list that we love so much right now and that we're learning to enjoy is not, it's not normal. It's
Yeah.
not everyday life. So my question is, how do we take what we're learning and what we're feeling, what we're doing, and how do we transition back into normal life? I mean,
Right.
as we have to be back at our jobs and we have to be back at school with pickup and drop off time, um, what does that look like?
Yeah. You bring up such a good point. I was thinking that. So I was thinking, I would prefer there not to be a pandemic for sure.
Yes, amen, sister. Yeah,
But I do recognize there have been some very sweet moments of time with my children and my husband and my family that I would not have had if were it not for that. So I'm going to mourn the
yeah,
loss of that.
yeah,
Um, but to your point, who knows what life is going to be like when we get back to it? I think there's a lot of people that are looking, and I think systems, businesses, organizations, schools are going to be looking internally and making some changes.
yeah,
So I don't know what we're going to necessarily be coming back to, but I do think that what we can take with us is the things that we did during this time, which is challenging, asking ourselves challenging questions
mhm,
always. We can keep
yeah,
that with us. And starting new routines. There's some habits that we've started now that why do we have to get rid of them?
yeah,
For example, what you were saying with the way that we communicate with each other.
yeah,
We can be intentional of going, you know what? Maybe we're not going to be physically around each other as much as we were before, but we're going to start communicating this way again. We're not
yeah,
going to communicate via text. I'm going to
yeah,
schedule time or put time where we're going to look at each other face to face and continue to share our feelings face
Yeah.
to face.
Yeah.
You know, so there are some of the habits we've picked up on that we can actually be intentional about keeping forward.
Yeah. I love that. I love that. Well, thank you so much again for taking, I know you have a lot going
Thanks
on at
for
your house.
having me. So do you, girl.
Do
So
you have, oh yeah, it's crazy downstairs. Do you have anything else you want to share with us today, or anything else you want everybody to hear about, just anything in general with what you're seeing, what you're dealing with?
I think we just have to remember that we're dealing with an anomaly here, and that while
Yeah.
we are physically boxed in, we are not mentally boxed in. And we have
Ooh,
to
that's
remember
good.
that we can be creative. We can think out of the box. We
Mhm.
can't control Corona, but we can control our attitudes.
Yep.
So
That's good.
we are free in our minds. We are
Yeah.
free in our hearts. Maybe not
That's good.
physically, but we're free in other ways. And those are really the most important ways to be free.
Yeah, I love that. Actually, I'm kind of thankful we're not physically free, because I'm feeling like it's helping us recognize the freedom in those
Right.
other areas. You
Right.
don't recognize it when you're physically free. You have everything you
Exactly.
need at your fingertips. You just go do it. So it's
Right.
nice to
It's
have
making
to.
us creative. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. All right.
Yeah.
Well, hey, I appreciate you so
Thanks for
much.
having
Thank you,
me.
thank you, thank you. You're amazing. And
Thank
I'm
you.
sure
You
people are going to
are
have questions, and I will throw them your way as soon as I hear
fantastic. You
from
know
the
how to reach
people.
me.
So
All right.
thanks,
Thanks so
Steph.
much. Thanks for